Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to week number 9 of the WiggyWam Get Your Property Questions Answered. And I'm really pleased that you guys are tuning in each week and listening to what we've got to say and getting some answers to some of these questions that I know people send in, and I'm sure that they will reflect other people who are watching and listening to us on podcasts and what have you, that will reflect their situation as well. So it's great that we've got this ecosystem going on in the background now, which I'm thoroughly thrilled about, because this was something that started off as a bit of an idea, and we thought we'll run with it and see what happens. And actually, really pleased with the response that this is getting and the traction that we're starting to see as well. So thank you for everybody who's tuning in, especially those who tune in on a fairly regular basis, which is amazing. And for those of you that also like to share our content as well, we really appreciate everything that you're doing there, because it certainly helps us to get the word out about what we're up to within WiggyWam, and also to help people get the answers to their questions, because some of the things that we see on a fairly regular basis is that people are struggling to get answers to questions. They don't know who to turn to and where to go for that sort of information. So feel free to direct them our way, and we'll more than happily take care of them. Also, just to let you guys know, we're going to start running what I call some expert series or special editions of these webinars in order to produce more value for our audience. Effectively, what we're going to do is start inviting people in who we can interview, and we can sort of have some discussions with and spread some more knowledge, really, in terms of the issues that people are facing with their home moving journey, and help them and support them as much as we possibly can along the way. So if you're watching this and you think that you've got some value that you'd like to add to our audience, feel free to reach out to me. Happy to help at wiggywam.co.uk. That's happy to help excuse me, happy to help at wiggywam.co.uk, and just let me know what your background is, what you want to talk about, and we'll get you booked in over the course of the next couple of weeks. I kicked off doing this last week with a fantastic young man called James Cocker. Really pleased to get that interview out to our audience, because he had a ton of value to offer. Incredible with his statistics. He knows exactly what's going on in the lettings world, and incredible interview, which I can't wait to share with you. So plenty going on there. Also, we've got a ton of stuff going on at the moment, guys. I can't wait to sort of share more with you, but these are some of the books that are going out now. Home Buyer Secrets is officially launched. We're doing press releases for that now. And if you go to homebuyerssecrets.co.uk, that's homebuyers plural, secrets plural as well.co.uk. You can see our web page there if you want to grab a copy of the book. We're also doing an incredible behind the scenes, if you like, property training as well. So one of the things we've realized is that people are struggling with understanding exactly what everybody does in the transaction. They know they need a solicitor, they might need a surveyor, but they don't really understand what everybody does. So we've pulled the veil back, if you like, on the entire industry, and we're helping people understand not just what everybody does, but also what's expected of them as a buyer or seller in the current marketplace, as well as some incredible tips to help them with their moving journey as well. So, as I say, homebuyerssecrets.co.uk for those of you that want to grab a copy of the book and make it an incredible Christmas present as well for somebody, I'm sure, if they're thinking about moving in the new year, or if they've got their house up for sale at the moment. And yeah, really thrilled to be able to offer this sort of knowledge to people, because there is a lot more that I've had experience with and been exposed to over the course of my career than just, shall we say, selling houses. And I think there's now more than ever is there a requirement for a new way of doing things. And I think the flaws that have been apparent in the UK housing market are now becoming more and more evident as result of this influx of transactions, which was completely unexpected, took everybody off guard, of course, or caught everybody off guard, should I say. But the fundamental point is, I think it's just amplified a lot of the problems that were already there. And then if that's the case, we now need a new way of doing things, right? It's a bit like if you imagine working in a factory, a car production factory or production line, and all of a sudden you turn up the dial to increase the amount of output, and things start breaking down. Those are the bottlenecks that need addressing within that production line, right? So within the property industry, it's just a bigger production line and bigger bottlenecks, unfortunately, along the way that needs ironing out. And I think that will come naturally as a result of the industry beginning to change as we go into what looks like a recession. How bad that will be, I don't know, but certainly a lot of the what I call deadwood will get flushed out of the system. And look, I feel terrible for anybody that business doesn't survive. I get that completely. We may be in the same boat. Who knows? I certainly hope not. But we've got some pretty good things up our sleeve that are designed to just help the businesses and obviously help people in their moving journey, which is what this is all about. So I think there will be a natural evolution and a natural where people have failed to change and people have failed to keep up with the times. People have just rested on their laurels a little bit. I think this is what this cycle of boom and bust does. It's almost like when trees grow in the forest, bad example, but when trees grow in the forest and strong winds come along and they start to break branches off or blow the tree over completely, that's the cycle of nature. And unfortunately, as much as human beings, we want everything to remain the same and we want everything to remain static. Life doesn't work that way, unfortunately. So it's going to be an interesting couple of years as we progress through this next stage in the market, and we'll see what happens. Things have been good for a long time, and we'll have to wait and see what unfolds. But we're here to help anybody who's got a business or who wants to move home. If you're an estate agent, a letting agent, surveyor, solicitor, any of those people, we've got some pretty good things up our sleeve that we can help and share with you to not just take the burden off, but also to make you more profitable, which is pretty cool. So anyway, I think that's enough of an intro. As I say, anybody that wants to come on our site, on our webinars in the future, let us know, and we'll look forward to receiving your emails. So let's kick off. Week number 9. Question number 1 comes in from Andy. Hi there, Andy. Thanks for jumping in here. What are your thoughts on booming going into liquidation, and does this mean there are very little alternatives for agents other than the big 3 property portals? Okay, Andy. Well, that's probably the biggest shock news of the industry this week. And I'll be honest with you, for me personally, it was a huge shock to see in the industry press, and it was almost one of those things you kind of double check. Am I dreaming this? Is this a hoax, or somebody's spreading malicious rumors or what have you? But yeah, I was pretty shocked to see that it had happened. And then, of course, with something like this, you start to read everybody's opinion, and people start putting out articles and all the rest of it. But I think, on the whole, there's a couple of things I didn't quite understand about the business model, and this is something that I think ultimately means it's not unexpected as to what's actually being the outcome. But I never understand this business model where you go out and you have an idea, and then you raise a whole bunch of cash, and then you go out and implement that idea, but you're losing money all the time, and therefore the only way to make the business work is to then go out and get another round of capital and spend all of that and still trade at a loss. And then the ideal is that you get through 3 or 4 rounds of funding to then go to PLC status, float on the stock market, and the Hail Mary has happened, and you walk away with tons and tons of cash. I never really understand that model. For some reason, and maybe a couple of big names have become successful. Uber's one of them. Amazon is another, where they've gone out and they've raised a bunch of cash, and they've then thrown it at marketing, and they've undercut the competition to try and establish market share, with the hope that once the other competitors have been priced out, they can then come in at a higher fee level, if you like. But I think this approach that was taken was quite risky. Personally, it's not an approach that we would take. Obviously, we're taking a more bootstrapped approach, shall we say, which I think is required, because in any business you're never going to get it right from day one, right? You've got to find your product market fit. It's all right having all these great ideas, and we've got tons of great ideas, right? But it's all about finding that product market fit. Does your idea fit with the market? And sometimes people talk about being a visionary. They can be a little bit too far ahead of the market. It was like the old Sinclair C5, if any of you are familiar with that. It was one of the first electric powered vehicles. And it was a huge failure, even though people could see into the future and go, well, maybe we will be riding around in personalized electric vehicles in the future. That flopped at that time because it was not the right time for that product to enter the market. And probably if it came out now, maybe it would be a different thing. Maybe somebody will resurrect the Sinclair C5 and bring it to the market as we're all going down the electric vehicle route. But from my point of view, and this is only my opinion, I'm always open to being proved wrong. And God bless them if the Bruce Brothers had gone out there and proven me wrong with this model, then all credit to them, because I can see what they were trying to do. It was a courageous move, but I also think that they were struggling with the reputation in the industry. I'm not going to get involved with a name calling or bun fight around that sort of thing, but there was certainly an element of resistance, I think, in the marketplace that needed to be overcome, and I'm not so sure the positioning was great in terms of doing that. Now, I've also looked into the background here, and I suspect that there might be it might not be the end of booming. I don't know. I'm speculating here hugely, so forgive me, but I'm not so sure that we're going to see the end of it quite as quickly as that, to be honest with you. So there may well be an iteration, booming 2.0, coming to the fore at some point in the future. Who knows? We'll have to wait and see what happens there. But wish everybody the best of luck. I obviously feel for anybody who's been unfortunate to be let go of from their position there. Obviously, if there's anything that we can do to help and support anybody, then feel free to get in touch, guys. But I think that it was a long shot. It was a big play, and again, when the market turns, never going to be easy to position the business into a shrinking market, which is effectively what we've got at the moment. But to answer the second part of your question here, Andy, you mentioned, are there any alternatives? And I think, yes, there absolutely are. And one of the things I think we are seeing in the industry is that, particularly for agents and other industry players as well, there needs to be an element of being more open-minded, I think, because there's, speaking very frankly, there are a number of complaints or a number of suggestions that I see being made in the industry, and these are not by any one person in particular, but a number of different points. And sometimes people are saying, well, what about this, or this should be done, or somebody should do something about this, or we're not happy that so and so's got a monopoly. And my view is, well, okay, there are alternatives out there, but the question is, why are people not exploring them? And then it comes up against this misalignment of values where people expect things like technology to be free. And because we've been programmed, if you like, by Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn, that are largely free platforms, there's this kind of misunderstanding of how those platforms generate their revenue. And as a case in point, with Elon Musk taking over Twitter, there's some controversy now about whether or not he's going to start charging users for being on there. And some people are very unhappy about it. Some people are saying they're going to leave. And the point is, developing technology is incredibly expensive. Okay, take it from me, it is incredibly expensive. And when you've got tons and tons of developers trying to work on something, they need to be paid. It's a fact of life. Okay, no estate agent or solicitor or surveyor would effectively work for free, particularly in a full-time role. Would they work for free? So there has to be an understanding that anybody who's coming to the market with a solution, it might not be perfect, right? But if it's 80% of the way there, and it solves you 50% of your workload, well, surely that's a pretty good start and worth investigating, right? And I think there is also room for a collaborative way forward here, where agents and solicitors and others can work together to solve a lot of these problems. Now, I know there are other groups that are out there right now that are trying to solve these problems in committees and all that sort of thing. Again, I'm not particularly fond of that as an approach, because I think any kind of decision via committee is always doomed to failure from the start. But from a point of view of working with individual businesses and saying, actually, I think you've got a skeleton of a really good idea here. What if you did this? What if you did that? What if you did that? And the beautiful part about it is, when you're working with new companies, generally they tend to be very lean, and as a consequence can react and move a lot quicker. And as a response, okay, you're then able to see that whatever element of service you've requested, or feature or function that you've requested, they're generally able to release it and get it out there very, very quickly. Okay, and that's the bit that I like about a lot of these startups that are coming into the industry, that they are going to shake it up, and it will come as a surprise very quickly. And the issue I think a lot of agents will have is, when does somebody come in to the marketplace and potentially make them redundant, or at least taking out a certain amount of their market share or a certain amount of their role. And I don't know whether I think Google or an Amazon or those sorts of businesses eyeing up something as big as the property market could come into the market and go, do you know what, actually, we can make all of that redundant. And that's the worrying part as far as I'm concerned. So I honestly believe that the industry has, if it's to grow and implement a lot of effective solutions, it needs to work together. And there needs to be a lot of harmony and a lot of interest in a lot of these new things that are coming to the marketplace. Otherwise, agents are going to be locked in this constant, I don't want to use the word Stockholm syndrome, but kind of this constant battle of just looking at the big three as the only alternatives, and then of course handcuffed to them in terms of the fees that they pay because they believe that it's an essential element to their business. But if you want to know more about that, Andy, then grab a copy of Estate Agent Secrets and have a read through that, because I'll explain to you a different way of marketing, which I think will blow the whole portal idea out of the window. But that's just me. Anyway, hope that answers the question, Andy. Thanks for that. Really appreciate your input. And again, it's a very big talking point in the industry right now. Best of luck to everybody who got involved with it. And, anything we can do to help or support anybody, then please feel free to reach out and let me know. All right, moving on. Question number 2 is coming from Duncan. Hi there, Duncan. This looks quite a long one. So let me read it to you guys. Duncan says, I saw your post on social media that you can help law firms who are struggling. I work for a small firm that I think is going bust. The owners haven't said anything, but we aren't stupid. We barely break even with conveyancing work. Our fee is currently $599, and a chunk of this goes on referrals. We've raised the issues with owners regarding fees being too low. They don't listen and instead keep taking on more work. I have 117 cases and I'm not coping at all. I don't like letting clients down, but I do, as I can't keep on top of everything. A colleague has 20 more cases than me, and it has seriously impacted his health too. How do we get out of this mess? Our firm won't invest in new technology. To be fair, we've bought into so much that promised the earth and didn't deliver, so avoid falling into similar traps. Also, we simply don't have the time to learn new systems. The firm doesn't do any real marketing, so we rely heavily on word of mouth and referrals. I think this makes us vulnerable. Our website is awful, and we're getting loads of bad reviews, which I have to admit we do deserve, as the clients aren't getting the best service. I have been with this company for 10 years, and this is the worst it's been. Something seriously needs to change, and quickly, otherwise we could be all out of jobs very soon. How can we convince them that we can do this another way that is both profitable and possibly reduce our caseload? Can you help us? Can we turn things around? I'm hoping I can play back your response to them. The only other option is for me to try and find another job, but I'm settled here and like the team. Wow, okay, a big question, that one, Duncan, and thanks for tuning in and for submitting that question there. There's a lot going on there, Duncan, and I totally appreciate what you're saying. And to be honest with you, not that this again is any comfort, Duncan, but you're not in the minority from what I've seen. And this is not just looking at firms in the marketplace, but it's actually looking behind the scenes at how they conduct their business and how they conduct their, shall we say, the fee arrangements and referral fees and that sort of thing that they're paying out. So I have seen a lot of this, and the real challenge that sits behind all this, Duncan, is whether or not the professional indemnity insurers start to kick the premiums up within the practice. And that's something I can't answer. Obviously, I don't know who you're working for there. And that's the biggest issue, because if that happens, then all of a sudden this low profit work is going to, effectively run the firm dry. The cash flow will dry up. There will not be enough cash to support current operations, and that can be a real major problem. So what I would say, really and truthfully, emergency intervention is definitely required. And I'm not saying that to be dramatic. I'm saying that because I've seen a lot of this, and it doesn't end well if people don't make changes, and fairly soon. Now, look, I'm happy, Duncan, to come in and troubleshoot. If you can get me in front of the partners or the directors, I'm happy to come in and troubleshoot and show you a different way forward. But again, in my experience, a lot of partners and directors can be very reserved, and also there's an element of like they don't like to admit failure. So they have to be open-minded to recognize that A, there's a problem, and B, it needs fixing, and perhaps the people that, with respect, created the problem aren't the best people to kind of fix the problem. Okay, that's why you look at outside consultants and all the rest of it. So I'd be more than happy to look at that. But I actually got into a similar discussion, Duncan, with somebody online recently, and they were like, "Oh, come on, then, if you're the expert, tell me what I can do as a conveyancer to turn my business around." And I said, really and truthfully, at the moment, with where the market is, there's kind of three things that you need to do. And first and foremost, as you've already highlighted, Duncan, the fees are too low. And if I'm being blunt, for the work that you're doing, you should be going the opposite end, which is higher quality work, turned around a lot quicker, but also paying a premium. The client should be paying a premium there. So there's an element to say that you should be at least looking at doubling your fees, if not looking at maybe 3 times your fees. And when people see that, they go, "Oh, I can't do that because so and so down the road's only charging 650 quid. I couldn't possibly charge 1200." Well, the problem is, Duncan, they're still in the same boat. They're still facing the same pressures, and the clients have to be convinced that it is worthwhile spending the extra money to come to you guys than it is spending less and going with the other party. Now, this is going to become a difficult exercise because the more of these bad reviews you get, it creates this self-perpetuating negative cycle that people are faced with reading your reviews, see that there's been bad reviews put out there, and as a consequence, you start to get into this commoditization death spiral, as I call it. And if you're not careful, that becomes almost a trap that you can't get out of. So the second thing that I recommend that a lot of legal practices do is to learn sales and marketing. And almost without exception, a lot of the law firms that I've looked at don't have a sales and marketing department. Okay, their marketing, if you like, is working alongside introducers and paying them a referral fee. But there's no craft there in terms of, as I say, the client coming in or ringing you up and saying, "How much is it to do the conveyancing on my house?" And the standard response is, "Well, let me ask you a few questions about it. How many bedrooms has it got? Where is it? Blah, blah, blah. Oh, yeah, we charge about this much. Okay, thank you very much." And that's the end of the conversation. One of the first questions would be, "What's your experience like in buying and selling property? Are you, have you done this before, or is this your first time?" Okay, well, if it's your first time, maybe you're going to need a gold standard product here. Okay, well, what's a gold standard? Joe Bloggs down the road is offering to do it for 650 quid. Well, the gold standard product is this, and let me tell you a little bit about how we handhold you through the journey to make sure that you're not alone when you're going through this. Okay, you're getting into a different way of framing your service rather than competing just on price. Because if everybody thinks you're delivering the same level of service, the only thing that they've got to choose you upon is price. Okay, and that's the biggest issue that you've got to get over. So by crafting a sales and marketing journey for your clients, that puts you into effectively what's called a market of one, and that's a real interesting place to get to. And that's the bit that takes the work if you're going to do this effectively. And as I say, it doesn't require a huge investment. I'm seeing some frustrating articles out there right now that are suggesting that law firms need to just go out there and invest in technology, but that's not going to help them if they're not producing a profit. And a lot of law firms that I've seen aren't making a profit, or they break even, or they're under pressure because they've got the professional indemnity insurance chasing their bottom line and absorbing most of it. And all of a sudden it's like, okay, how do we get out of this? So they can feel trapped. So, another piece of software isn't going to help you get out of that situation if you can't close a client on the phone or close them through your nurturing journey that makes them realize, what, actually, this is the right firm for us to use. And that doesn't require a huge amount of extra work to get you to that point. But what it does require you to do is to stop digging the hole. Okay. If I can put it to you that way, stop digging the hole and then look at, how you're going to re-educate your clients in such a way that actually to work with you is far more valuable and worth paying the extra than it is to go down the road. Because the simple point, Duncan, and I'm going to be brutal here, is that in the short term, let's say, for example, overnight you doubled your fees, okay, or the firm doubled their fees and they went to, say, 1,200 quid per conveyancing case. All of a sudden, you've got a lot more margin to play with, right? It's still doing the same amount of work. Hopefully, it will reduce the amount of work that's coming in, but you've got better margins, so it makes it a lot easier, okay? So the ultimate point is, the reason why your directors and owners will be afraid to do this is because they say, we'll lose work to Joe Bloggs down the road who's charging 650 quid, all right? Now, the issue is Joe Blogs down the road may not be around in 6 months' time. Okay, they may not be here in 12 months' time. And the reality is they've taken on all this cut price work, and then all of a sudden they go to the wall. Well, who's your competition now? Okay, they've priced themselves out of the market by this bad practice. So now you're in the lead. If the client's coming for conveyancing, well, they've got less choice now, right? They don't have the cut price competitor to go to. They've only got you guys. So that's the way I would attack it and actually get on board and offer a much higher level of service that suggests that you'll return calls within 4 hours and you'll return emails within 3 hours or whatever it might be. You'll handhold the client through the journey. You'll do stuff online to speed up the process. Okay, you might even dedicate a specialist customer service manager to handle all of those cases for them. Okay, sorry, to handle their case for them and let the conveyancer do what they do best in the background, is actually do the conveyancing work. And the customer services manager just gets on the phone and starts speaking to people and updating them. All of this can be done, but it can't be done when you're running on margins that are wafer thin and you're just trying to take on more and more work to somehow make a profit. It doesn't work. Okay, so a lot of what I've just said there sounds as though it's overwhelming and there's a lot to do. But the final point I'm going to underline is you can partner with somebody to do all of this for you. Okay. And that's not going to cost you the earth, but it's worthwhile looking at. And that's something that we would willingly and happily do with you to help turn the business around and make it work in such a way that actually everybody will get better job satisfaction and you'll still be around in another 10 years. So that's my view, Duncan. Apologies if it's a little bit blunt, and apologies if it doesn't make pleasant listening when you're putting this in front of your owners or directors of your law firm. But I think the first thing we have to admit, it's like any issue, you have to admit there's a problem. If you can admit there's a problem, then the solution is readily, easily found. But unless you admit there's a problem, it becomes very difficult to get that solution. Okay, so feel free to reach out to me, Duncan. If you want me to come in and have a chat with everybody, then let me know. More than happy to do that, and it would be my pleasure to show you what we can probably do to really turn things around and actually do it quite quickly. All right, good luck with that then, Duncan. Question number 3 now coming in from Greg. Hi there, Greg. So Greg says, we exchanged last week and had a call to say that the sale had completed. Congratulations. Arrived at the property with everything in the removals van. Turns out our solicitor had sent the money to the wrong solicitor and was trying to recover it. After many hours, we were informed our purchase hadn't completed and they could do nothing until Monday. The seller had already moved out and let us have the keys just to move our stuff in, but we and our 3 children had to find somewhere else to stay for the weekend, ending up in a cheap hotel. Oh, sorry to hear that, Greg. Our solicitor's mistake meant that we were effectively homeless, which was very stressful. Thankfully, by Tuesday, we were able to move in. Is this a normal thing to happen? And do you have any right? And do we have any right to be compensated for this? Okay, Greg. Well, I'm sorry to hear that. It's not unusual. I've actually heard of probably about half a dozen or more cases. It's so far in my career of something similar happening. And this is why I'm not a fan of Friday completions. To be honest with you, unfortunately, things do happen. This is a mistake. It seems like it's a very genuine mistake. It can happen when you're trying to balance a lot of different things all at the same time. But if that money's in the banking pipeline being transferred from one account to another account, and somebody's put the wrong details in, then if that's on a Friday afternoon, as you quite rightly pointed out here, Greg, there's nothing that can be done over the weekend, right? So, as I say, this is why I'm not a fan of Friday completions. But it seems like in this situation, I'd be going back to the solicitor and say, look, I understand mistakes are made, get that completely, but it doesn't mean that we should be made to pay for that mistake, okay? So I would have a chat with them about recovering some of your costs for your accommodation and also for any kind of, I suppose, inconvenience that you've suffered as a result of that. And that might be, I don't know, 500 quid or something of that nature. Worth having a chat with a solicitor and see what they say. I probably wouldn't go so far as a claim and that sort of thing. That's not really where I'd angle this. I'd just have a chat with them and say, okay, your mistake. Don't think we should be out of pocket for it. What can you do? Okay. Because it is what it is. And it sounds as though you're actually in the house, which is a good thing. And you've got your hands on the keys to your dream home, which is fantastic. So that's how I'd play it, Greg. Nice and quick and short answer to you, really. I'm sorry it's happened. It does happen. and it's a conversation with the solicitor to try and rectify your out-of-pocket expenses and a little bit of inconvenience would be the way I'd handle it. So good luck with that, Greg. Let me know if there's anything else you need, and more than happy to help where we can. Okay, question number 4 here from Sally. So Sally's question is twofold. The front of our house was rendered 12 years ago. We've had recurring problems on the edges of our window bay walls. The edging strips on the bays have rusted and the brown marks have come through the plaster and paint. We're not sure if we need to re-render the wall or if it can be repaired. We're not sure what has caused this. It's been treated and repainted a couple of times, but always comes through again. Second question, we're looking to do a lot of work on the home, rendering of the front and back of the house, new windows and doors and a new kitchen. We want to know what order to do the jobs because all deliveries and white goods will have to come through the front door. So we want to try and limit any damage. Hope you can advise. Okay. Well, thanks for the question, Sally. A bit of a surveying question, which is interesting here. So I would suggest what's probably happened here is that on the external wall, you've got what do they call it? Beading or galvanized beading will be embedded into the into the render. Sorry, which it sounds as though that galvanized coating has deteriorated and now it's rusting. And the problem you've got now is that once that rust has started, there's no protection to the beading to stop it rusting further. So you can keep going on this fourth bridge approach, if you like, which is putting stain block on the damp patches that are coming through and then repainting. But ultimately, with that galvanized metal strip still in there, which is rusting away, unfortunately, it's going to carry on doing it. So my guidance would be to look at chopping that out and replacing it. Now, if you're going to get the house re-rendered anyway, it's not going to be a huge exercise for somebody to do. They'll just come in, chop it all out, replace it, embed some proper galvanized beading in, and then when they render around it, it should all be watertight and everything else. Something very similar actually happened in a farmhouse that we were doing up some time ago, Sally, and it was around the windows on the internal reveal that instead of using metal beading, because it was done, probably 150 years ago, they'd actually used timber strips. Okay, so there were timber strips embedded in the plasterwork, and then they plastered up with the reveal up to this over this timber work. And what had happened, of course, is that as we replastered over, because the house was a bit of a mess, we did all the replastering, because of the timber that was in there, absorbed all the moisture, and then as it dried out, because of the plasterwork was all drying out, we started to get cracks appearing. And the only way we could deal with it was to hack out the timber work and then do a replastering job around the windows. So sounds like it's something very similar going on with your rendering here. So I'd just get them to chop it out and replace, but make sure you see them do it and make sure that you inspect the beading that they're putting in there, that it is galvanized and it is all kosher, for want of a better word. And that will help massively in terms of preventing this problem reoccurring in the future. As far as your order of works are concerned, if you're looking at getting things kicked off now, Sally, what I would probably suggest is that you look at maybe replacing the kitchen now over the winter period, because it's work that can be done indoors and it's less of a convenience of obviously having your doors and windows out if it's blowing a gale outside or it's snowing. And then I would look at, in springtime, replacing your doors and windows when the weather's a little bit better and all the rest of it. And then your rendering would be done after they've done the replacement of any doors and windows, because there's always a risk, no matter how careful the window contractors are, if the render's been, done right up to the windows, they start taking the windows out. It doesn't take much to knock, some of the edging off the render, and then all of a sudden you've got an unsightly repair, which wouldn't have been there if the windows and doors had been replaced first, and then the rendering done afterwards. So that's how I would approach it if I was in your situation. There shouldn't be any damage of people getting white goods and stuff in and out of the house. That would just be a contractor issue. So yeah, just make sure you've got some competent people on board with that, because I'd like to think that the white goods would come heavily wrapped and that sort of thing as well. So any damage against the plaster walls coming in and out of the building would hopefully be very superficial and not sort of big dents in the plasterwork, etc. So that's how I'd look at approaching that one, Sally. Good luck. Hope it all goes well. And again, if there's anything we can do to help in terms of finding either contractors or other people that would maybe help you there, then we'd be happy to do so. So good luck with that one, Sally. Question here, number 5, comes in from anonymous by the looks of it. Question says, I'm thinking about starting my own podcast or webinar like Christopher Watkin is always banging on at me to do. How do I get over the nerves of getting started, especially dealing with online trolls and negative comments? Okay, great question. Well, the advice I'd give you on this one really comes from personal experience, and that is, truthfully, you've just got to start. The way that we've approached anything to do, or should I say I have approached anything to do with life, is that when you start out, you have to understand that you're not going to be any good at this sort of thing. So I'm trying to give you an example. It's a bit like going to the gym, right? And a lot of people use gym as an example. But when you first go to the gym and you see people lifting weights and all this, you think it's fairly easy, right? So, for example, on the squat rack, you see people getting on a squat rack. They put the bar on and they, hump this weight up and down, up and down, up and down. And what you don't realize is that if you go and follow that, you might not get the form right, and therefore you might be carrying the weight in the wrong part of your body, and then you ultimately might end up doing more damage than good, right? So with this sort of thing, it kind of helps to observe what other people are doing that you like, and kind of replicate that, or follow suit in what they're doing that you think, actually, I like this bit, we'll use that in our business, or we'll use that to in as far as our social media is concerned, and then just get started, okay? And then you can always iterate and do things better in the future. There's goodness me, I'm trying to think of his name now. He does the Diary of a CEO, but his podcast has recently just taken off, like in terms of the amount of views. I think they were doing like 10 million views a month. And when they first started out, they were getting hardly anything. And that was like 6 years ago when they first started. And the biggest thing I can tell you is it's all about consistency, okay? So if you're consistent with sitting down, churning out the content, and providing value, then I think personally you'll be fine. I think the issue is, for a lot of people, they have this great idea. Yeah, I'm going to start a podcast, or I'm going to do a webinar, or I'm going to do whatever, weekly market updates or monthly market updates. And people start and they do 1 or 2, but because it's not a firm commitment, they don't continue it. And I think I was reading some statistics recently, and I wish I could find them for you, because it was suggesting how many millions and millions of podcasts there are out there. And there was only a very small number that make it past 26 episodes. Okay, the vast majority only ever have 1 episode. So people have this idea, I'll start a podcast because somebody mentioned it. They start the podcast, they do 1 episode, they feel uncomfortable, it doesn't quite go the way they wanted to. Maybe some things were said, as happened in our first episode when we did this, and we said some things that were taken the wrong way. And, people come down on you like a ton of bricks. It's this online troll bit that you mentioned, or negative comments. And they go, oh, you shouldn't do this. And you go, oh, okay, well, maybe I made a mistake, or maybe, I didn't communicate clearly or whatever. But you just have to accept, unfortunately, that's part of the process. And, my view would be, sit down with a piece of paper, mind map out some stuff, okay, especially things that your audience is struggling with, right? What is your audience struggling with? What are their main concerns? What do they need help with? And then start putting some content out there that deals with those things, okay? So, I don't know, maybe you're a mortgage advisor, for example, and you find that first-time buyers don't really understand the mortgage application process, and you think, well, actually, why don't I produce a 2-minute video or a 5-minute video all about the mortgage application process? This is what's involved. And put it out there, and don't expect that you're going to get hundreds of views or thousands of interactions and lots of comments. The chances are it'll probably be, into the ether, and you get nothing, and you're sitting there going, oh, well, that didn't work. I didn't get any response. I didn't get any feedback. And as a consequence, you get disheartened and you let it slide, right? And my view would be, don't let that happen. Keep going, okay? Keep going. Take it on the chin if something negative happens. I mean, the thing about these online trolls, okay, there are quite a few of them, and they'll probably get a few for saying this now, but the way I view it is, a lot of these online trolls are literally children in adult bodies. They've not quite graduated from the name calling that they used to do in the playground, and somehow think that it's acceptable to do that in adult life. And, each to their own, do that, but you won't find anybody of significant value. You're not going to find Jeff Bezos online throwing abuse at people for trying something new, right? It's just not going to happen. The only way that these people have got there is actually by doing things that other people aren't prepared to do. And so, what Christopher Watkin has suggested is, if you're going out there into the marketplace and put this content out there, this video content or whatever else it might be, just start. Okay. And the biggest thing I will say, if you can set a target of maybe doing 5 or 6 episodes, you'll find that things start to become a lot easier because you've got over the initial hurdles and the initial nerves. There's a lot of stuff that we're doing right now that, quite frankly, we're having to face up to the fact that we might get a bit of backlash, and that's okay because we know where we're going, we know who we're trying to serve and look after in the process. And those people that aren't on board with that, that's fine. They can go and do something else. They don't have to be involved with what we're doing. But our heart's in the right place. We know we're coming from the right place. We know what we're trying to achieve. And ultimately, we just have to go for it. And I think one of the biggest phrases I can give you is try and find me a statue that's erected to a cynic, okay, or a critic. It just doesn't happen. And the only people that have achieved, have upset others along the way. It's a fact of life. They have done things that other people didn't agree with. And it's very easy for people to sit in a pub over a pint of beer and moan about, stuff that's wrong in the world. And there's a lot wrong in the world, but there's also a lot of right as well. So I would just go with it. And if you can get that consistency, and I can't believe how quickly things have gone that we're on week 9 already of our webinars and podcasts. Like the time has absolutely flown by. And, sometimes I get really nervous. And like today, I was really excited. And it might have something to do with how much caffeine I've had today, but I was really excited about coming into today's episode because, we've got so much going on. And it's like, this feels like an extra added value contribution that we can give to the marketplace. And it's just like, well, why not? Let's share some knowledge, let's answer some questions. And if people like that, great. And if people don't like it, also great. But we know where we're going and we know what as I say, our hearts are in the right place, what we're trying to add as value. And I'm sure if you take that approach with what you're trying to do here, then I'm sure you'll be successful and you'll find that it comes back. But the other tip I can give you, if you're thinking about doing this, is you'll find, you'll find that you can actually repurpose a lot of content. And this is one of the things that I didn't realize how valuable it is, that when you start something like what we're doing here, I'm not saying this is the right way to do it. We are, full on experimental phase and I'm loving it. Why not throw ourselves in the deep end and figure it out as we go? But the way that we've chosen to do this is to do a webinar that's anywhere between sort of 30 minutes and 60 minutes long, and answer a bunch of questions. And then what we do is we take each one of those questions, we break it up into little bite-sized chunks. Okay, purely because not everybody's going to sit through, a 60-minute webinar, for example, but they will listen to a 6-minute video about, I don't know, making their own podcast or webinar or whatever it might be, or dealing with solicitors or anything like that. So the ability to break that content up and share it, and also there are other things that can come off the back of this, such as you might get your audio transcribed, and you might then offer that as a guide. Or as a PDF download or something of that nature to create part of your nurturing journey for clients as well. And it all stems from just sitting down and doing this one exercise and then continuing to do that over and over again. All right. So hope that's been useful. Definitely go for it. Consistency is key. If you want us to be involved in some way, happy to do so. If you want to put your podcast or your webinar onto the WiggyWam platform, again, let us know. We've got actually quite a few contributors who are doing that right now. And it's really interesting. And this is not just, Silas of WiggyWam telling you this. Go and have a look on the site yourself, okay? But what's interesting is we've had 1 or 2 contributors that have started putting their stuff on there, and on their own sites, they're not actually getting much traction or interaction. But actually, by sharing it on our site, they're getting a ton of engagement, okay? And I think that's phenomenal. It's testament to our success. We get to see, obviously, as owners of the business, all of the back-end stats that sit within WiggyWam. And I can tell you page views and the number of visitors that we're getting to the site are rapidly escalating, and that's really encouraging for us. Obviously, it means that we're doing something right, and we can see again granularity, if you like, on that data, that this is not robots that are coming in from Russia that are on our site. It's actually genuine people within the UK. We get a couple of people from overseas, and that's cool as well. But the majority of our audience obviously is in the UK, which is what we're targeting. So I'll just throw it out there. If that's something you want to do, feel free to get involved, and we'd love to have you as part of our site as well. So wish you the best of luck with that. All right, fantastic. Moving on to question number 6 here from Thomas. Excuse me. Hi there, Thomas. Okay. Thomas says, we are in our 70s and have to sell up due to ongoing stress from a neighbour who is making our lives a total misery. The agent we hired put the property up for sale for 50 grand less than a similar property across the street sold for earlier this year. We agreed to do this for a quick sale. After 2 weeks, the agent asked us to drop by 25,000. This didn't sit well with us. In the end, we agreed, then received an offer 15,000 under the new asking price, which we declined. For some reason, the agent has now took the property off the portals, which means no one will get to see it. The agent forced me to use their conveyancer and agree to their marketing pack, which included the portal marketing. But when I checked with other agents recently, they include this marketing in their commission fee. If I give 28 days notice after the contract period of 12 weeks, then hire another agent, I will potentially have to pay twice, as the terms state that within the next 2 years, if a person buying the house has seen an ad on the portals or viewed the house, then we are liable to pay the full commission, even if the buyer was not introduced by my agent. Is this lawful? I feel like we've been well and truly shafted here and no idea what to do. The agency is part of a national long-established chain, so I expected better from them. All right, Thomas, well, thank you for the lengthy question, and I'm sorry that you're in that position. A couple of things that are going on for me, Thomas, when I read this. Obviously, I'm taking a lot of what you say at face value, so I haven't seen the contract. I don't know what you've signed up to, what's been agreed, or anything like that. But personally, gut reaction suggests that what you're suggesting is quite onerous. Excuse me. And it certainly raises suspicion if what you're saying is true. However, what I will say is that if you are in dispute with your neighbour, this is where I see quite a few people get caught out, is that they end up falling out with a neighbour, and then it escalates to things like solicitors' letters or correspondence from lawyers going backwards and forth. And unfortunately, this is something that is declarable when it comes to selling, the time to sell the property. Okay. So in terms of the price differential between the one that was across the road and the one that you're selling, I don't know what the condition of that property was like. And I don't know whether it's something that you've investigated at all, Thomas, but I don't know what the condition of that property is. I also don't know whether there was an ongoing dispute with a neighbour in relation to that property. I suspect probably not, but again, I don't know. So these are the two factors that I would take into account. Also, I don't know what the outlook and the condition of your property is. Are you next door to a substation, or are you, does the property need renovating? All of these are questions that would perhaps help explain the pricing disparity, rather than jumping to a conclusion that says, well, is somebody trying to pull a fast one here? I don't know. I don't have that information to hand, Thomas, but if you want to supply me with more info, I'll happily look at that. But the way that you can handle that would be to invite probably 3 other agents in the area to have a look at the property for you. And they may well have knowledge of the property that sold across the road. They may well be able to give you some advice about the condition of your property and how to market it. And particularly, as I say, dealing with this issue of your neighbour that it seems like you've had a falling out with. So I'm not going to encourage you to cut the agent out. That's not what I'm about at all. What I would say is, if you're genuinely unhappy, I would express that to them in writing, so it's very clear about what you're saying. So either via email or a formal letter, write to them and say, do you know what, this is what I thought we'd agreed. This is how things are transpiring. This is what I'm unhappy about. And it may be a genuine misunderstanding that needs clearing up. It may be that for whatever reason, somebody's clicked the wrong box in the CRM system, and that's why your property's been taken off the portals. It might not be malicious. But if there's a breakdown of communication with the agent, then obviously that's something that needs to be addressed. So I would express your concerns in writing, let them know where you are, and let them know what you're thinking about doing. If they respond in a way that makes you feel valued as a client of theirs and helps address some of those issues, then obviously that's a good place to start from. But also, I would invite other agents to your property to have a look. Now, the challenge that you've got, and this is something that is going to be a difficult one to deal with, is that because your property's been on the market, there will be a digital fingerprint or a digital trail of your property that's been on the internet, and agents have back office systems that will allow them to look at what data is around about your property. So they will have seen it go on at a certain price. They will have seen it being reduced. Okay. So the likelihood is, if they're being called in to look at the property, then that may well be an unfair influence on what they feel the property is worth. It shouldn't be, but it may well be. And that's something that you're going to have to take head on with them, and get their advice and get their support, and discuss the situation that you're in and see what feedback you get. Because, as I say, there's too many variables here to know, is it just this one isolated incident with the agent? Is there a wrong agenda at play here? Is there a genuine misunderstanding? The only way you're going to find that out is by talking to, 3 of the people who are local to you, who can then probably steer you in the right direction. They might all 3 come round, and they might all give you a figure that's at the level of the offer that you received. Okay. And that will help you have confidence that actually, yeah, this is the price for this property. And the reason the other one sold for more money was because it was in fantastic condition. It had an amazing view. There was planning permission for, a building plot in the back garden. There could be all these sorts of things that are going on here for you, Thomas, that, as I say, I don't have enough information to fully answer that. So that's how I would play it, though. And if you are genuinely unhappy, of course, you're within your right to terminate the contract and move on. But I would give the agent the benefit of the doubt and talk to them first of all, or say, put your concerns in writing and see where the conversation goes. What I've realized, Thomas, and I think I said this in one of our previous episodes, is that unfortunately the British don't like to complain. And we're all very softly in our approach. Somebody says, "Oh, was everything okay?" "Oh, it was fine." And as a Brit, when you're saying the word "fine," that probably wasn't fine, and there's probably something that needs to be addressed there. And so I think giving somebody honest and genuine feedback in a way that is considerate and lands well, then that can really help them a lot more than people realize. I had a conversation recently with a gentleman who's part of the industry, and he gave me some very direct feedback, but I knew it was coming from the right place. And I was like, do you know what? I'll take that on the chin. And actually, more importantly, I'll act on it, because I could see that he got our interests at heart, which is absolutely the right way to be. So give them the feedback. And then once you've had the other agents round, because there's nothing to stop you inviting them round, they'll talk to you about this contract as well, as to whether or not you're tied into it. And then you can make a decision because you're armed with a bit more information. Does that make sense, Thomas? Hope that's okay. Yeah, a lot going on there. And I'm sorry that you've had a falling out with your neighbour, because I know from, well, not personal experience, thankfully, touch wood, but from a couple of friends, I actually met a couple who were retirement age. This is when I was living in South Wales for a little while. And they came to see us, and we went out they wanted to take us out for dinner. And I kind of thought, okay, well, why do you want to take us out for dinner? And we went out and we had a really good meal, and it was halfway through the main course. And they said, oh, the reason we're here is because, and again, it was to do with a neighbor who was, making their lives a total and utter misery. And that whole situation just got completely out of hand. And I honestly encourage people that when they're in this sort of a position, think very, very, very carefully about what your next move is before you get into the hands of solicitors' letters and that sort of thing, because it can become a very difficult situation and very costly as well, where unfortunately the only winners are the lawyers who take this sort of thing to court. So yeah, be very careful there, Thomas. If there's anything we can do to help, please reach out to us, let us know as well, because, as I say, I'd like to try and help you find a way forward in that sort of situation. But talk to other agents in the area, get some more information together, and then you can make a more informed decision about what to do. All right, you guys. Well, I have got some more questions, believe it or not, but I'm actually going to bounce those into next week because it's coming up. I didn't realize we've been on this for nearly an hour now. So thanks for all your time, care, and attention with us. As I say, I'll deal with those questions next week for anybody that submitted those questions and you want to know what the answers are. I'll feed those to you next week. I'm really excited about where things are at with WiggyWam and everything else that we've got going on in the background. Hopefully, there's going to be some pretty cool things unfolding. Well, not hopefully, I know there are. And I'm really looking forward to how that's going to help and support people in their moving journey. So keep an eye out for those. It's going to be very exciting in the race towards Christmas as well. I can tell you that. So I'm really thrilled to be able to share more with you when I can. And yeah, as November progresses, I'm sure there's going to be more and more announcements coming out. So keep an eye out for those. As always, if there's any questions that we can help you with, any concerns, any comments, any feedback that you want to give us, please feed it through to us. Happy to help at wiggywam.co.uk. That's happy to help at wiggywam.co.uk. You can also reach out to us on our website, which is wiggywam.co.uk, or also on Twitter, which is at wiggywam_UK. That's at wiggywam_UK. And be happy to take any of your questions ready for next week's webinar, which is going to be, again, very exciting. And I'm looking forward to working with you guys all again then. So that's it from me. Thank you once again for tuning in, and I'll look forward to seeing you all on a future episode very soon. All right, you guys, you take care. Be good. Bye-bye.